What's going on, everyone? So, the Los Angeles Lakers and their schedule has officially dropped. So, I want to show you the schedule. I want to go over all of the key games, kind of break it down together. Of course, I want to hear your thoughts and opinions on the schedule, so let me know down in the comments below, kind of walk through it together. So, let's get right into it. All right, let's get into the schedule. Real quick, couple things of note. So the Lakers only have 13 back-to-backs, which last season they had 15. They have 5 road trips that are 4+ games. They have 4 homestands that are 4+ games. Toughest stretch is mid-March road trip, which includes games at Boston and a back-to-back in Milwaukee and Denver. Also, the Lakers have 27 national TV games, 11 on TNT, 10 on ESPN, and 6 on ABC. They also have 12 games on NBA TV. This doesn't include potential NBA Cup, quarterfinals, semifinals, and finals. And this is per Jovan Buha. So, diving right into it, kind of getting a look, and let's break this down together. So, right off the bat, the first 5 games. Yeah, let's kind of zoom in here. So as you see at the top here, you got the Minnesota Timberwolves, you have the Phoenix Suns, you have the Sacramento Kings, and then you have at Phoenix and at Cleveland. So the Lakers' first 5 games are all against playoff teams and some of the better teams in the league, right? So opening night on the 22nd, you got Minnesota right off the bat. Now you are at home for the first 3 games. That's good. And you also have, before the back-to-back against Phoenix and Sacramento, so they got a back-to-back pretty much to start the season. You do have, 3 days in between. So that's going to be a very interesting stretch, right? I believe you got to at least go 3-2 during that stretch, right? Phoenix, I think you beat Phoenix at least once, right? I think Phoenix, it's going to be tough to beat them twice, especially in such a quick turnaround. Although it's very possible, but you play them twice in a 3-game span. So let's say the one at Phoenix you lose. So I think you got to beat Cleveland, you got to beat Phoenix once, and then you got to beat one of Minnesota and Sacramento at least, and start 3-2, and then you get into Toronto, Detroit. That would put you at 5-2, and then you got Memphis and Philadelphia, right? And then you start getting into the stretch where it gets not a little easier, not super easy, right? San Antonio's probably going to be pretty good this year. Then you got New Orleans. We'll see what happens with them. Utah, Orlando could be interesting. And then your first game against Denver is on 11/23/2024. But that first opening stretch is where I think we'll have a good idea of where the Lakers are. See, I worry about Sacramento because it's just they're one of those teams that we just have not been able to beat, right? And that becomes a question, especially how does it work with DeMar DeRozan? So Sacramento could be a team that I think we could beat if there's a little rockiness to start, right? Trying to balance out De'Aaron Fox, DeMar DeRozan, and Malik Monk. Right, but Sabonis and Anthony Davis's track record has not been good. So I would love to beat Minnesota opening night, but the Lakers haven't won an opening night game since 2016 or something like that. So hopefully maybe this is the year that they finally pull that off and they finally get that win. That would be nice. Where, you're looking at Minnesota, Phoenix, Sacramento, and Phoenix and Cleveland. Yeah, like I said, you got to beat Cleveland, got to beat Phoenix one time, and they beat one of Minnesota and Sacramento. I would love to start 4-1, right? Beat Minnesota, beat Phoenix, beat Sacramento. Say you lose at Phoenix, and then go into Cleveland and end up taking care of business in that game. Go Toronto, Detroit. That stretch is going to be very tough. But then you kind of go down, so you get into February or December, is the Cup games where you see the 25 and 26. So we'll see how those go if the Lakers take that Cup serious. Obviously, last year the Lakers, they wanted to win that Cup at all costs, right? That last year they wanted to, no matter what, get that done. Where this year, do they take the Cup as serious? Now, I'm not saying that they're not going to try to win, right? Because all the games except for that one, the championship game, all count. So they are in their best interest to win as many games as they can. But do the Lakers kind of go business as usual, right? So say LeBron is dealing with like a nagging foot injury or something, right? Do the Lakers rest him rather than playing him, where last year he would have played because he and the Lakers really wanted to win that cup. They wanted to win the first ever cup. Do the Lakers kind of go on precaution this go around, and preserve themselves for the actual NBA finals compared to, trying to push hard for the cup? Because also you got to remember, when the Lakers, after they won the cup, they ended up losing 10 out of 13. Also, Indiana ended up losing, I think they lost like 8 out of 10 or something like that, something crazy like that, right? So, is that something that teams kind of take note of going forward? Is that something that they kind of look at going forward? So, I think it'll be interesting in that regard to see how serious the Lakers take that. Then you got after that, from the 27th game to the 31st game, play Sacramento 3 times. And then you got Golden State. So you got Sacramento at Sacramento twice in a 2-day span. So that's going to be tough. Then you got Sacramento in LA on the 28th. Again, that's going to be tough. Then you got Cleveland, then Portland, Atlanta, Houston, at Dallas. That Houston and Dallas, you gotta, in my opinion, you gotta win both of those, because then you follow that up with Charlotte, and then San Antonio twice in a 2-day span is tough, right? Because again, San Antonio is going to be much more improved this season. Then you got Miami, Brooklyn, and then if you kind of shift over here, you got that starting the new year, getting into January, right? You got Clippers on the 10th at LA, so in their new Intuit Arena. Washington should get that done. Boston, and then Golden State to follow. Again, that could be pretty tough. Charlotte should be a W at Philly. We'll see how Paul George, Maxey, and Embiid look, but that could be a tough one. And then you got a nice little stretch here in February with Indiana, or you got Golden State, Indiana, Utah, Portland. So that, to me, got to win all 5 of those games, right? Because you're coming off of the Knicks and the Clippers. So if you can win that stretch, that'd give you a 5. Then you got a lot of these stretches where you're playing teams essentially back to back, right? Because you look on the after the Minnesota game on 2/20, you got the Clippers and the Clippers back to back. It's really strange that the Lakers have to keep playing these teams. And then you even got one with Orlando, right? On 3/22. Back to back. Another one against Oklahoma City on 4/6, 4/8. Yeah, it's strange that the Lakers have to play so many of these teams back to back, or in even in such a short turnaround, right? Some of these teams you're playing twice in a 3-game span. You think it'd kind of be stretched out a little more. But looking at the last stretch of games. So let's look at the last 10 games here. So the last game of the season is at Portland. So you should win that game. Then you are at home against Houston. I think you should win that game. Then you have that stretch against Dallas, OKC, New Orleans, Golden State, Houston, Memphis. Man, the last stretch. So, man, that last from basically, what is that, 3/11? You got Milwaukee, Denver, Phoenix, Milwaukee, Denver. That is a brutal 5-game stretch. That is tough. That is brutal. And then you have, what is that? Orlando, Indiana, or or is that Chicago? I think it's Chicago. Sorry, the writing isn't great. So I think it's Chicago. So after that Denver game, you got Chicago, Orlando, Indiana, Chicago, Memphis, Houston. So that stretch should be good. I mean, you should beat Chicago both times. Orlando, I think you should be able to beat. Indiana, I think you should be able to beat. Memphis, at Memphis, might be tough with Ja and everybody if they're healthy at this point. Then you got Houston, Golden State, New Orleans, OKC, Houston, Portland. Yeah, this is. I mean, it's kind of balanced in the sense of like you got a couple tough games and then a couple hard games, right? Like this stretch against Golden State, Indiana, Utah, Portland, Denver. Before you get into that Denver game, that one I think is a nicer stretch, but still, I mean, again, you're playing Utah back to back. It's hard to beat anybody. I don't care how bad a team is or anything like that. Like it's so tough to beat a team twice in such a quick turnaround, right? I mean, you're talking literally what is that? That is a back to back, right? The 11th and the 12th against Utah. So you're playing at LA, and then you got to turn around and go right back to Utah, play that game again. That's tough. It's a tough anything, right? So, I mean, it's a pretty tough schedule for the Lakers, especially that opening, the opening and then the end. The first 5 games to start the season and then like the last 10 games to close the season are tough. And then you just kind of have like pretty decent balance. You got like a good game. You got a tough game against Philly, but then a game against Toronto you should win, and then Memphis, and San Antonio, and then New Orleans, then Utah, then Orlando, then Denver, then Phoenix, then San Antonio, right? So it's kind of like these somewhat balanced. But to me, that first opening stretch is where we're gonna have an idea of how good the Lakers are or aren't, right? I mean, those first 5 games, I mean, you could start 0-5, you could go 2-3, you could go 1-4, right? You got to have a winning record coming out of that. Whether it's 3-2, ideally 4-1, right? Because I worry about it's again that Phoenix back to back. It's not back to back, but within 2-3 game stretch, you play Phoenix twice in a 3-game stretch. That's where it's kind of like you probably drop one of those games. I'd love to win both, but you probably lose one. So again, yeah, gotta beat Minnesota opening night, in my opinion. You gotta win that 3-game home stretch. You gotta start 3-0. If the Lakers can start 3-0 at home against Minnesota, Phoenix, Sacramento, that would be huge. And then you go on the road for what is that, a 5-game road trip, right? So you got Phoenix, Cleveland, Toronto, Detroit, and Memphis. Let's say you lose to Phoenix. Let's say you lose to Cleveland, right? So that'd put you 3-2. And then you beat Toronto, Detroit. So that'd put you 5-2 going into that Memphis game. And then you get back home for Philly, Toronto, and Memphis. So let's say you lose to Memphis, be 5-3. Can you beat Philly at home and Toronto at home and Memphis at home? Like, just handle your home games, right? So if you win your home games, you got 3, 6, and then let's say you beat Detroit and Toronto 7-8. Go 8-4 in your first 12 games. If Lakers could do something like that, I'll be very confident. Very confident. So there you have it. There is the schedule. Again, it's tough, right? You play a lot of teams just in such short turnaround. And that's where I think the problem really lies, because it's just like, it's hard to beat anybody 3-4 times. It's even harder to beat those teams 3-4 times in a 4-game stretch, 5-game stretch, right? So it's just like a lot of like Orlando, Phoenix. Like, so it's going to be interesting to see. Again, that opening stretch is going to be massive. And then that closing stretch, right? Because if the last few years, the Lakers have been like, you need that last, like the end of the season kind of eases up to where it's like, okay, like as long as we go like 8-2 down the stretch, we're fine. And the Lakers have, and then they've been able to kind of keep them in like the 7th range. Where this season, I don't know if you're going to be able to do that, right? So Lakers need to handle business pretty much out the gate, pretty much out the jump, and can't really play around. You can't really mess around with this, right? Because, like, if you're behind the 8 ball here and you get into that rough stretch at the end, I mean, Lakers could easily be looking on the outside in. So you got to handle business. I do think, as currently constructed, I do think this team can be a top 6 seed. But, you know, you got to start out right, and you got to start right out the gate. Can't mess around, right? We're going to see what JJ's got. We're going to see what this team's got. Obviously, if a trade gets done between now and then, great. But unless something comes out of the woodworks, right, you got to assume that we're riding with the guys that we got. Okay, well, let's go. It's another year of chemistry, better coaching. Guys are healthier. Let's rattle off some wins here, right? So anyway, as always, this is a discussion. Pass question on you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? How do you feel? What are your thoughts? Do you like this schedule? Do you not like this schedule? You're kind of indifferent about it. You're like, I mean, the West is tough regardless. You knew Lakers' schedule is going to be tough, but everyone in the West is. But we'll see how this all kind of shapes up, plays out. We're, 2 months away? So right there, fingers crossed. Let's get this done, right? But anyway, again, however you feel, whatever your thoughts are, I'd love to hear it. So let me know down in the comments below. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me a lot. It's me enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe channel, hit that subscribe button, turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one. Thank you.